I'm super excited to be up here and really thankful everyone's joining us. I'm Scott Full. I work at Peaq Network. I'm the DePIN and Web3 growth lead. These projects don't need any introductions, but we are going to get into it one by one. And let's start with a quick intro on everyone and what your project is about for the people that don't know.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yevgeny. I was born in Ukraine, came to US about 20 years ago, and started my career in automotive, working at OnStar. And since then, spent a whole decade in automotive and IoT. And during that time, I built a variety of solutions from EV charging to self-driving to even insurance use cases. And we started DIMO about 3 years ago to solve the problem of a few things, actually. So the very first one is, and the most important one is privacy. I don't know if anyone saw, but a few weeks ago on New York Times, most car companies are sharing your data behind your back. And while Twitter and some of the other places online are free, a car you bought for $60,000, that data should be yours. The second problem is there's 130 car brands, and if you want to build an application, you have to go talk to 130 car companies that are all 100 years old, which is going to take you at least 100 years. And finally, we are doing it in a decentralized way in a ledger, so there's no platform risk for either side, and the owners own the data, and the developers can build apps freely.
Hello, my name is Manolis. I'm one of the co-founders in WeatherXM. WeatherXM is a decentralized community-powered weather network. We are rewarding station owners for the data contribution to the network. And we use the data produced to improve the accuracy of weather forecast, and we sell those services to enterprises that are weather sensitive, and we close the loop of our economy with our own token. Our story goes back in quite a few years back in time. We started in 2012 as weather enthusiast geeks trying to solve the problem of inaccurate weather forecast by aggregating third-party weather and trying to find which one was working better per location. It was a side project. It took us a couple of years. In 2015, we started our company as a system integrator doing weather analytics, and there's been a lot of iterations and pivots and changes. And 3 years ago, we decided to pivot into Web3, inspired by Filecoin and Helium, and essentially we ended up being the Weather DePIN project.
Cool. Hi, everyone. My name is Alec. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Spexi. And Spexi is a drone imagery network. So we incentivize people who... Check. We incentivize people who own drones to contribute imagery to the network. And so, simple thesis, the demand for Earth imagery is moving towards higher resolution options, and drones provide the highest quality imagery that you can get with any kind of device. So the problem is, how do you get that at scale? How do you actually fly drones at scale over cities to do it? And that's what the Spexi network solves. So at a very high level, you own a drone, you download our app, you go into a city that's open for capture, you get close to the houses that need to be flown, and then we reward you to capture them with our software. So it's fully autonomous flight. The drones take off fully autonomously. You are monitoring the airspace for safety, and you move one house to the next. So we've just done almost all of the urban area of British Columbia in Canada as our first big test. This is the equivalent of flying New York, Denver, Las Vegas, and Philadelphia combined. And we're just getting started, so really excited.
I'll lean in, maybe it'll help. Mark here, co-founder at Aethir. Co-founder at Aethir, is that all right? Yeah. Okay, sorry TV. I know this. But yeah, Mark, co-founded Aethir. We build decentralized GPU cloud infrastructure for gaming and AI companies. We're a high-performance compute infrastructure network. Every GPU connected to our infrastructure is connected via a data center or plugged in through enterprise-grade network infrastructure. We started as actually a cloud gaming network, right? So we were building cloud gaming infrastructure, realized that there was some interesting solutions to some of the performance and latency challenges in the cloud gaming space that might be able to be addressed in a decentralized compute manner. So we started building out that infrastructure and quickly realized that this high performance, kind of low latency GPU compute network that we were building had a lot of relevance to the AI industry as well. Started to lean into the high performance compute side, and we now have 43,000 GPUs all over the world, all of them again enterprise grade, sitting in data centers. We have the largest collection of H100 infrastructure in the world. In Web3, around 5,000 of those GPUs. So we're really happy with where we are at the moment. We're one of the only, I think, DePINs in the compute space that have large language model contracts deployed on our infrastructure, and we're also true to our gaming roots. We still have a large number of kind of gaming clients, and we're really pushing our infrastructure in kind of parallel. And maybe I'll talk about it a little bit later, but we do see an intersection between kind of AI and gaming in the future. So thank you for having us. Excited.
Yeah, let's definitely get into parallel markets later, because we were on Space talking about it with the WeatherXM. So the next question. So we all know how big of a pillar you guys each are in your sector. What's the difference between what you guys are doing and your incumbents in your actual sector? And not in a mean way, just what makes DIMO that top pillar, you know what I mean?
There's a couple of things. So first thing to know, there isn't really a Web2 company that we're replacing, because it doesn't actually exist. So I think that's a starting point. But besides that, what I think we're doing that's going to really enable it is, the best example I can give to people is, remember in 2005 when there was Singular and Nokia phones, and if you wanted to build an app for those phones, you had to go talk to Singular, and then you had to go talk to Nokia, and you maybe got your app out there. With what we're creating, we're going to do the same thing to a car. So you no longer will need to go talk to these 100-year-old companies. You just need to go talk to the user, the owner of the asset, in order to get permission, and that's going to enable a whole new slew of innovation that I think we have yet to see in the automotive space come together.
So I guess in our case, we are kind of not replacing, but doing similar stuff with what the government is doing when it comes to rolling out weather infrastructure or other private companies. The huge differentiator in our project is the cost. The cost of rolling out weather stations. Traditional infrastructure is huge. On average, in the US, NOAA, who's in charge of that, spends $60,000 for a weather station in an urban environment and $120,000 for a rural. And that's the total cost for deploying one. And it's not just the equipment, it's also the labor, the people that you have to coordinate, to do the space that you have to find to do the proper installation and to make sure that the thing is working nonstop. So the advantage in the DePIN approach is that you can utilize a community to coordinate and organize this on a much, much cheaper way, because they are becoming part of the economy. And at the same time, we're using low-cost equipment that are, they need more attention, they need more maintenance, but that's okay, because that's part of the design. And our thesis is that it's better to have 10 low-cost weather stations instead of one very expensive in the middle of an area, if the goal is to have a better representation of weather conditions. So by creating a dense network of additional points, we, and anyone, not just us, can utilize this data to produce more accurate forecasts, but also make decisions based on weather conditions as they're coming in real time, which it's not a standard thing. If you open your mobile phone and you check the weather, how's the weather in your location, most likely what you're getting is the nearest weather station, which is probably in an airport 50, 100 kilometers away from you, especially if you're not in a very strong economic country or area. So we have to keep in mind that another advantage of DePIN projects is that they don't have any borders, so they can be applied immediately on a global scale. So maybe some countries don't need those services that much, but there are definitely a lot of countries that they lack infrastructure so much that they are desperate to have just anything.
Yeah, so with Spexi, that essentially there is no other network or platform that's trying to deliver standardized high-resolution aerial imagery at scale. Our biggest competitor is actually fixed-wing companies. So when you look at Google Maps or you look at aerial imagery of your area, most of that imagery comes from fixed-wing planes flying over a city, and they do that sometimes once a quarter, but mostly once a year or every 2 years. That imagery is sold to the cities, it's sold to the governments, it's sold to a bunch of different kinds of folks. And really what we're doing is we're making that much easier for drone pilots to contribute to. And in fact, we can actually start to replace some of that imagery that exists in the market with ours. It's also a much higher resolution imagery product. So there's many more use cases that can come out of the imagery. But I mean, really the demand is just moving so much more towards high resolution. So we're satisfying that demand with this network. We use the blockchain to verify uploaded imagery, and we're also planning to launch a token to incentivize supply. But really those two things combined make us quite unique.
Yeah, I think maybe separate to some of you guys, there's not all that much different, right? There's not all that much difference between what we're building and what a centralized provider would build, right? It's the same GPUs, right? It's the same network infrastructure. It's the same data centers, right? The real issue that we're addressing is the fact that there is just this global compute scarcity, right? It's incredibly difficult for small to medium-sized enterprises. It's incredibly difficult for startups to access this high-performance compute, and that's for a number of different reasons, right? There's huge amounts of buy pressure from the biggest tech companies in the world. NVIDIA can only produce so many chips per year. You have situations like large language model complexity, right? It's models today are exponentially bigger than their predecessors, right? ChatGPT-2 took roughly 10 billion tokens to train. ChatGPT-3 was about 410, right? Within that 2-year period, we didn't see exponential increases in, the performance of compute infrastructure, right? So there's this growing gap between what the market needs and what the market's able to supply. And we kind of look at this problem, and we also kind of looked at kind of this fourth part, which was the efficiency of how we manage resources within this ecosystem, right? And high-performance compute is incredibly mismanaged. And now more so than ever, the cost of that mismanagement is really high, because this infrastructure is incredibly expensive, right? One server, one H100 server is around $300,000 to $400,000, right? And people like Zuckerberg are out there buying just under $11 billion worth of these chips at a time, and they're buying it knowing that the H200s are a year away, right? And they don't care, right? They just need access to this infrastructure, and small and startups, they need access to it as well. So we looked at this and we said, okay, if we could create an infrastructure layer that allows all of this equipment that is currently being underutilized, right, and currently also inaccessible. People forget that the majority of this compute is not going to companies like Amazon, right, that are able to redistribute it to others, right? A lot of it's being purchased by companies that buy it for their own use cases, right? So if they misforecast or if they mismanage, right, that's just dead supply. So we built essentially the infrastructure that allows these companies to redistribute their underutilized equipment, reduce the risk to their balance sheet effectively, and then pull that supply back onto the market and make it usable again, at least on the AI side. We do a similar thing on the gaming side. Essentially, we're building out, again, GPU-based infrastructure to make the unit economics of cloud gaming more scalable within developing markets, right? You've got 3.3 billion gamers out there, 2.8 billion of them are gaming on low-end devices, right? What's going to change to make them accessible for the biggest gaming publishers in the world, right? And in my mind, you've got kind of 3 potential solutions, right? One is you raise the GDP in these regions, and all of a sudden they can, buy fancy phones and gaming computers, probably not likely. Second, we have some sort of like chipset revolution, and all of a sudden we can produce super powerful chips at a really low price, and everyone has, really powerful phones just by default. And then thirdly, we figure out how to scale technology we already have, which abstracts the requirement for individuals to have expensive hardware, right? And that's what cloud gaming is. So if you can just solve the scalability challenge, which we think DePIN allows us to do, right? You can, unlock the biggest piece of the gaming market that's, currently untapped.
Mark, so I love what you said at the end, and you kind of prefaced this next part is parallel markets. And I've actually got to talk with Alex from DIMO, WeatherXM. We were just talking about it on the Twitter space last week. And yeah, I don't think a lot of people other than builders are really like super excited, but just the synergies and like what you said, you're already doing gaming. What parallel markets, like obviously if it's a secret, don't let it out, but if there's anything you could talk about, outside of what your main part of your DePIN is building, other markets that get you excited or what you're looking into building.
So, in the short term, we're going to see let's say, applications that exist get built. So things like insurance, but you're going to have a place to go where any developer can add their own insurance application. You're going to see people building AI chatbots on your vehicle data so you can just ask what's happening with my car. But in the future, my background is actually in self-driving vehicles, and DIMO is in the future going to power that as well. The reason you're not seeing more self-driving vehicles on the road is it's an interoperability problem. You need all these 130 car brands to talk to each other, to talk to the stoplight, to talk to the parking system, talk to the gas station. It's impossible to build these API integrations. It's an infinite complexity map, right? So you have to convince everybody to kind of build in the same common layer, which the ledger allows us to do. But I'm most excited when we're going to be living in a world where I can wake up and buy a car on chain that I put into a car sharing pool, and it's going to drive around, and it's going to make me money, and someone else can do the maintenance for it, and I can just earn off of that.
So I think this pool idea that you were just talking about is very interesting, and the DeFi space is helping us to build on top of that or to enhance that. And this is something that we have been looking for quite some time as well in WeatherXM. So we know that there are countries and areas that they desperately need more weather data, but the people there cannot afford even our cheap $400 weather stations. So at the same time, there are a lot of crypto enthusiasts that want to participate in the project, but might not have an appropriate location to deploy a station. So we think we're solving this problem with decoupling the ownership from the operation of the system by creating those kind of pools where people can participate and basically purchase a weather station that they will not receive, but that weather station is going to be sent to a different place, probably to a developing nation, and is going to be deployed by a farmer. The farmer will benefit from improved weather forecasts and weather data, and some crypto rewards as well. But the majority of the crypto rewards will go to the original user that bought the weather station, basically through the pool mechanism. And we're going to announce more on this in the coming days. So I'm really excited to see that rolling out.
One of the most kind of surprising and interesting use cases for our imagery, we talk about other networks and how it works. We were speaking with the Uber team, and they were like, we have a $500 million problem. When our drivers for Uber Eats get lost, even for 5 minutes, they lose their margin. So could your imagery help us pinpoint with much better accuracy where the drivers are going? And we said, well, absolutely, that's a great use case for it. They said, cool, we'll be a customer, but also our drivers are starting to churn more than we want. Wouldn't it be cool if they had a drone in their car, and when the Uber network was low, that they would just swap to go flying drones? It's a different activity, and they stay with it. And we said, well, that's not a bad idea. Thanks, Uber. And so, when you start to get these new behaviors of people that are really passionate about doing these kinds of things, it enables tons of different things that you'd never think about. And I think that's one of the more interesting examples.
Is there any military applications?
There are. Not that we don't do them now, but there are. There could be, yeah.
Cool. All right. Yeah, parallel markets. So we have kind of the AI side and the gaming side within Aethir, and there's a convergence that I see that's kind of coming within the next kind of couple of years, right? And that is, as AI markets mature, as the AI application and consumer side of the market matures, we're obviously going to start to see greater diversity in how we communicate with AI, right? Right now, it's almost exclusively through chatbots, right? We're typing, we're texting, and we get kind of an inferencing response through that. But that's not going to be the limit of our kind of interactions for very much longer, right? We're going to have text-to-speech, speech-to-text. We're going to be communicating directly with AI avatars, right? These avatars will be representing a human form. They will have facial features that respond and that mimic emotion, right? And if you think about all of the processing that has to happen to make that occur in real time, right? That is real-time rendering. That is effectively cloud gaming, right? You've essentially got AI inferencing, right? And then the humanization or the AI productization layer that needs to be in place to turn your AI chatbot into a customer service agent that smiles and has, you know, not an uncanny valley style personality or persona. That's all cloud gaming, right? These are essentially mini NPCs that are being spun up and will exist to serve multitude of different functions. And all of that infrastructure requires, you know, incredibly low latency, real-time GPU compute in, you know, networks where compute can happen as close to the user as possible. So we kind of look at this as two sectors of the DePIN space that we're building out. I think both independently are quite complicated, but certainly we see our biggest value kind of occurring with the maturity of the AI application space, probably, you know, 1 to 2 years from now.
Awesome answers. I'm so excited. Parallel markets really get me excited because I feel like it's something that like it's just the first inning on. Even though DePIN's like the first inning too, I just feel like what you said, Uber just came out of nowhere. You're like, what's going on? So I think even the more projects that come out, just the more synergies that we'll have. But the next question, so you guys have been building for a long time. What lessons have you learned along the way? And it could be, you know, like a good lesson. It could be something like, oh, I'll never do that again. And what advice do you have for like some of the newer builders in here, you know, that might not have to go through the same headache?
My one lesson that I would give to everybody is, even if you're building a protocol, don't be afraid to build the first great consumer product on top of that protocol. This is something that Web 2 companies have done for a long time. It could be a demo, could even be a full application, but you will figure out the protocol much faster if you get in the hands of users and they actually like using it. Outside of that, on the governance side, I would say don't overdo it at the beginning because it gets harder and harder to undo it later.
For sure. Yeah, I'm going to build on that. So we started centralized, and we are progressively decentralizing the project, and I think that's more fair to the community as well, like communicating it that way. We don't really use the word DAO even today, but we do have a DAO wrapper, a legal entity. We now do have a token on mainnet, so we're slowly going to move towards the direction of a protocol, and I think it makes life easier. Well, life is hard anyway when you have a DePIN, but yeah, at least you don't have to worry about so many things at the beginning. And yeah, so see yourself as a Web 2.5 company.
Yeah, common theme here, I think. We also have come on a plan for progressive decentralization and what's minimum viable decentralization, let's call it. And it's really important that you still have control over the things you're building as you build them, because things can move so fast. So not doing that too quickly, I think, is really important. But I mean, also at the end of the day, you know, you have to get there. So trying not to go too quickly is definitely what we like to do.
Yeah, I've been on a couple of panels with kind of VCs recently, and it's interesting to see there's a bit of a difference in opinion, right? When you hear advice from a VC versus, you know, advice from maybe a founder. And in particular, I think there's bigger dissonance for some reason during bull markets, right? VCs have a tendency to, say to founders, build at your own pace, right? Make the right decisions for your product. Don't raise money if you, don't have like an urgent need to raise money. But then if the market, takes a dump and you're back in the bear, right? They don't care. They didn't invest in you, right? You missed your chance to make, hay while the sun was shining, right? So my advice to projects, I guess, from a builder is, don't underestimate the amount that you need to do during the bull market, right? It is easier to raise money, right? It is easier to get traction. More people want to work with you. There's more partners that are doing other interesting things that are willing to support you on your journey, right? You can build relationships and do really interesting things with a lot of people. And I think it's your responsibility as a founder to make sure you are moving as quickly as you can, right? You don't want to sacrifice your roadmap. You don't want to sacrifice your ethics, right? You still need to have and work towards your North Star. But you need to make the most out of the bull market, because when the bear market does come back, which it will, you don't want to have regrets, right? Having too much money, VCs will say it puts a pressure on you. You have these conditions you need to meet, right? And that's all well and good, but you're still alive, right? So just move quickly and make the most of this kind of bull market while you can.
Yeah, I love what you said there, Mark, because a lot of people just pretend this super cycle is never going to end, or the beginning of this cycle, like, it's just going to be forever. It's like the 2021 talk again. So this is a great, to this next question. So what does it take to be a successful project in 2024? And what you touched on, Mark, what is it going to take for DIMO to be the bear market breaker, where it doesn't, of course, ETH's going to go, everything's going to go down, but what keeps me up at night, and probably keeps a lot of you guys up at night, how can we get people not to turn the devices off, right? Like kind of what happened in the 2017 stuff, when people were just like, oh, my token's going down, and turn the devices off. But I feel like now, who's gonna not want to share their DIMO data? Who's not gonna want, their weather station? Who's not gonna want to do drones? And who's not gonna want to do GPU and video games? So yeah, would love to hear what you guys not really your plan, but what's it gonna take for, people not to turn the devices off?
I think it comes down to getting real utility out of it and getting it to be something that they want to use every single day. Another way to say it is design for the bear market, as if it's always a bear market, and then when it's a bull market, you'll be doing even better, right? But that being said, I think for us at DIMO specifically, we've gotten to 85,000 cars now, and we have a lot of conversations about 10 developers building everything from a guy in his basement to an enterprise. But I think it's getting that actual demand side from developers, people who want to see the data, who want access to the data, and actually getting that out into the real world, and having people be able to get access to 10 to 15 apps. I think they'll understand the value of DIMO much faster that way.
Yeah, I'm going to be sitting always next to you in the panels, because you're opening the introduction for what I want to say, so it's great. Yeah. So yeah, I think utility is the most important aspect here. It's useful to drive demand, but it's useful if the utility of the project is related with the actual community that is deploying and running the whole infrastructure, then the bear market is not going to be such a threat. So in our case, we have, we're lucky that we produce something that a lot of people want, which is a better weather forecast, and this is irrelevant of crypto. So we have especially when we started the project, we had a lot of people that were using our hardware and our mobile apps, and they hadn't set up a wallet at all, even though it's super simple, because they didn't care. They were happy with what we were providing already, and maybe they knew we were on a testnet, so it wasn't important. But yeah, so I think utility is an important aspect.
Yeah, second all of that, and really the simple word demand for what you're doing, generating real value and cash for the service or the product that you're building, is it's no different than any other business. Crypto has some interesting parts of it. The blockchain has a ton of utility and is interesting, but at the end of the day, you need to build a fundamental business that has demand and cash flow. So that's what we focus on a lot in these next months, and really when we're building a two-sided marketplace, we really are focusing on demand as hard as we possibly can, even more than supply. And I think, you know, doing that at scale, if you can really do it and grow thoughtfully, it's not so much speed of growth, but thoughtful growth that has cash flow is, I think, being able to do that is that the projects are going to, that can show that and have the value go back into the network in the right way are going to be the winners.
Yeah, maybe not too much more to add. Something that I like about DePIN as a category is generally the main application is outside of Web3, right? You're dealing with cars, that's not a Web3 thing. You're dealing with weather, that's definitely not a Web3 thing. You're dealing with drones, also not a Web3 thing. We're dealing with AI, you know, not a Web3 thing, right? So as long as we're building a product that works, right, our customers are still there, right? DeFi ecosystems, for example, where you have some, you know, fancy staking mechanism, right? Like, if Web3 customers switch off because they feel like their bags are dumping, right, then you know, that ecosystem really struggles, right? But as long as we're building something that works, and we're taking the best out of Web3 and using it in the right places, then, you know, we're really just operating like a real business outside of Web3, right? Because that's where our customers are.
This is what makes you guys the pillars of your sectors, literally. So I'm sure you guys walked around the convention. Seemed like everyone added DePIN to their end of their booth. So I'm sure you've heard and seen some of these interesting projects, such as the orphanage DePIN or the toilet DePIN. What makes what makes a good DePIN project, you know, in your eyes, you know, not in everyone's eyes, just, you know, DIMO, you know, and so on. What makes a project not one of these ones that we are naming or seeing where you looked at their old pitch deck and there's nothing about RWA and DePIN, and you see their new, and it's this whole new chapter in the back. So yeah, would love to hear what you guys think about that.
So for me personally, I think DePIN and blockchain in general is really good in use cases that have to be decentralized. So you can't put compute in the all in one data center. You can't put weather all in one spot, right? You have to, if you want to map the world, you actually have to go around the world. And, you know, same thing with cars. Transportation is very decentralized, but those are the kind of use cases that have to be that way. Same as finance, right? And telecom, helium. Those are the things that tell me it's a good project and not a toilet DePIN, is it?
That was wild. I didn't even say on Twitter. Yeah. He's like posing by it. I was just like, is this real?
That's the unfortunate thing about bull markets is they bring some of that as well. But I would say the other way to say it is I think also you're solving a real problem that real people have or real businesses have that you're enabling them to do something better than they were doing before.
Yeah, so crypto incentives is a coordination tool in the same sense that money is a coordination tool. And so yeah, if I guess attractive DePIN's projects are the ones that they have a huge problem that it's real, that exists in the world. And the only way to solve it or to solve it efficiently is by coordinating a huge number of people to work in this direction. But in my point of view, it has to be a real problem, like, because you can coordinate people to do silly stuff, but then there's no value into that. I mean, even if you think there's temporarily some value out of meme coins, for example, personally, I don't see the point there. So I'm happy that we're in a project that we feel it has a purpose. Like, even if our project fails, at least we will leave some infrastructure that people can, you know, utilize to get better weather forecasts, basically.
I notice all of us have that same heart, like this first inning DePIN family, like we all have that same, so it makes me feel good as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think what makes like, when you take a real business and you see the demand and you can see why that product or service is valuable, and then you can see that blockchain, crypto economics, and this coordination layer can just add way more value to that business, those are the ones I get really excited about, because that's such a good use case for crypto and it has utility. being able to leverage the best parts of incentives and crypto economics to make your business better, I think those are the ones that I watch for most, like everyone on this panel.
Yeah, again, being at the end here, I don't really get to say all the good stuff, but I think what's cool about DePIN as a category is that I think we should be seeing more and more weird ideas, right? As more and more experts enter the space, right? I think there was, DePIN, DePIN's probably the category that has the most broad applications within Web3, right? And it's going to keep getting more and more broad. So I think when we look at like what makes a good DePIN project, I think first we have to realize, I guess, that there's no real kind of categories, right? It's like, what is the application? Why does it make the most sense to do it in a decentralized way or to utilize, the blockchain or crypto economics? I mean, I don't know much about this like shitcoin, right? But I can imagine that if I was like a doctor that really wanted to like understand more about the dietary requirements of a population, right, at scale, right? What better way than like sell them a toilet that does some sort of analysis, right? And then reward them with a token for using that toilet. I mean, it makes total sense, right? I was living in China during COVID, and there was all of this sort of stuff that talking about how the government was, and they were probably doing it in the US too, right? Where the government was assessing the kind of sewage output at certain regions to work out whether neighborhoods had COVID, right? So there's a huge amount of value kind of, in the toilet. Maybe, maybe it's a great idea.
One of our parallel markets that
yeah, maybe it's a great idea. Who knows? But yeah, I think DePIN's great because it can get weird. But yeah, it's got to have a good reason for it.
Yeah, before we get in the last question, you brought up you two. If the data and the use case isn't in Web 2, it's probably not going to work out in Web 3. So if you are a user and in here as a user, not a builder, always keep that in mind on your GYOR. If nobody cares about this data or anything in Web 2, it's probably not going to be good on the blockchain. But amazing panel. We're going to get in this last question. What other DePIN projects that are not on this panel do you like, and what sectors get you going outside of your own?
Very difficult because DePIN space is not that large. But Helium's not here, and our latest device, the Macron, runs on the Helium network, which I think is very exciting, right? I love the fact that my DIMO device talks to my Helium hotspot, and I'm basically paying myself for my own data while providing coverage to everyone else. I'm sure there are many more, but I'll take the easy example.
Shout out to Helium.
Hive Mapper was here before, so we can't use that one. So I think there's a lot of, we're going to see a lot of new projects that are doing some kind of technology that DePIN projects need, because it's difficult to build everything from scratch. And we have a lot of moving parts. We have hardware, software, a lot of analytics. We need infrastructure that scales, tokenomics, Web3 layer. Some DePIN projects require they have an advantage when they have all the proofs on chain for the data they produce, and we are one of them. But the complexity is so crazy that you definitely need partners to figure out how to make it work. And if the partners are DePIN specific, like peaq, for example, that understands the industry and can, you can accelerate the development using, their technology. And one of our partner is Tableland Textile. So we use a product there. It's called Bezin, and it helped us archive our data in Filecoin. So Filecoin is an awesome project. It's one of our investors as well, Protocol Labs. But other than that, it's really cool to use decentralized storage technology to store all this data and all these proofs. But it's difficult, obviously, because it's complex. There's deals involved, and that partner of ours helped us basically solve that problem. So, yeah.
When we did, I did a podcast with Tom last week, and he asked me my favorite DePIN projects, and I didn't say the correct answer then, so I'll say it now. It's Fluence. Yeah, I mean, I have so much respect for all of these projects, and you guys have been leading the way, and we're excited to be in the company. There's one called Nadix that's interesting, and I haven't met the guys yet, but they're doing some really cool compute on phones as they're sensing the world around them, and I think that's really interesting and could be some partnership for us. But yeah, that one's piqued my attention quite a bit. I think it's called Nadix.
Will you ever build your own drones?
Maybe.
All right. Okay, so I think Jensen spoke earlier here. I really like the Jensen team. When you look at the challenges that we look at in the compute space, one of the biggest challenges or potentially opportunities, right, is all of the latent compute that exists within consumer devices, right? The challenge within the space is that no one wants to buy that compute, right? That's the difficult piece. It's really hard to package that compute in a way that meets all of the SLAs of big kind of enterprise compute buyers. Something that I know Jensen is working on is really how to kind of package and merge that compute into some form of kind of big supercomputer mesh that can do these big compute tasks that kind of large AI companies and enterprises want to do. This is a huge technical challenge, and you'd need a very technical team to overcome it. And I think they're one of the most technical teams working on this sort of project, this sort of problem in the space. It's certainly something that our team knows that we're probably not well suited to solve immediately. So certainly really respect their decision to tackle such a challenging issue, and hope they succeed, because it'll be fantastic for the space and arguably a step change in the compute ecosystem if they do it.
Well, thank you very much, you legends. I love seeing you at every convention and doing this. It never gets old, and I hope everybody here, whether you're a user or a builder, you got some alpha, you got something you can take with you. And appreciate Fluence. Thank you for having us all out, and it was a great event. Thank you.